And we're back. When we last left off, we were thrown in jail, and now we had none of our equipment or weaponry. And to top it all off, we are now facing the first boss, the Shotgunner. This guy was ironically called the Shotmaker in the MSX version, and honestly I think Shotgunner is an improvement. He would actually be a very difficult boss, except for the fact that you get your weapons and equipment back right away. Ridiculously right away. The one reason that this guy might be difficult is that if you wind up coming in here too early, that shotgun he has does a huge amount of damage, and the closer you are to him, the more damage he does. It's supposedly possible to kill him with punches, but I've never seen it done. We just got card number 3. Now, there's a couple of ways to kill this boss, because he doesn't have any specific weaknesses or resistances. The preferred way usually is just to pound him with remote control missiles, and this is another instance of Steve showing up, which I had largely forgotten about. So Steve does make a second appearance. God bless you, Steve. He's the best, to quote Phaelus. Anyway, the normal way is just to pound him with remote control missiles, but I elected for the far more stylish pistol shootout with the guy. Now, as you can see, he does more damage at close range, but the farther away the shot goes, the bigger the area he covers. And still does a lot of damage at long range, but he's still not that hard. He will mess your shit up, though, if he hits you, if he actually touches you, though. And one of the rare cases of a dog indoors. Ironically, the dogs were not in the MSX version. They are unique to the NES. Also, this is something that Mercenary Cobra 1, a friend of mine, was nice enough to point out that I had largely forgotten about, and this is for almost every piece of equipment in the game. If you call Big Boss, he will tell you a little bit about it. This was removed from the European version, so I was surprised it wasn't the NES version. This is actually, now that I think about it, was how I remembered that the missile was the remote control missile. But some of Big Boss's responses, as you just saw, are very sarcastic. For example, saying real men don't need body armor. Go figure. This winter coat-looking thing is a bomb blast suit. When you wear it, it halves the damage you take, specifically from explosives. And it also makes you impervious to wind barriers, which we will be encountering a little bit later on in this mission. Honestly, it's not so great. The body armor will half the damage you take from anything, though, so that kind of makes it a lot better. One of the more outlandish responses from Big Boss actually comes in the second when we enter this. And the dog somehow saw us. I have located some enemy uniforms. Now let's see what Big Boss has to say about this. Big Boss here. Enemy uniforms? Are they cute little sailor suits? Again, imagine that done in David Hayter's voice. You can't do it. You can't do it without laughing. Now, you note since I ranked up that my health gauge increased. I'll give you a bit more info on that in a bit. Right now we're going to be heading through what I like to call the forest maze. Now, normally, this is part of the new area in the NES version, but then there's a maze set up there, and there's this very specific pattern you have to go through it. Also, I just discovered a mine. They're invisible until you either step on them, or if you have a mine detector, you can detect them that way. And this truck has infinitely respawning rations, and we do well to take advantage of them. Anyway, once you rank up, rank is a general indication of how, skilled a Foxhound agent you are. The higher your rank, the better, the more ammunition, the more health, and the more weaponry you can carry. Like, for every star that you have, you can carry 3 rations. So at 2 stars you can carry, at 1 star you can carry 3, at 2 stars you can carry 6, at 3 stars you can carry 9, etc. Your your bullet count and your capacity for secondary weapons also increases, and most notably your max health increases. And here we found some additional plastic explosives. This is the back door I mentioned when I mentioned card 4 in the last video. This door specifically opens from card 4, and you can specifically access it using card 4, which is in this very truck. It's also worth noting you can't enter the trucks in the MSX version. Go figure. Well, you can enter the trucks in the MSX version, but only the ones in the top-down viewpoint. You can't enter the ones that are like this. And something you may have noticed immediately is the guards spotted me despite me not being in their line of sight right there, and they were immediately alerted. Something which happens again right now. And the reason why is, when we got our equipment back, we didn't just get our equipment back. They added a little something extra, this little fucker. And you use it like a ration to get rid of it. Basically, and that's a bottomless death pit, and if you stray into it, you instantly die. As long as that transmitter is in your inventory, every single time you enter a new screen, anything there is immediately alerted to your presence. There is no point in going stealth if you have this, and this actually catches a lot of players off guard, like the Ruby from Uninvited. This is like, you know, a lot of people who don't really realize that that's not supposed to be there, and you're supposed to get rid of it, and just think it's like some cool new bonus prize for getting far enough, and they get, no, that thing actively tells enemies where you are. Where we're headed through right now is a sensor grid. You can't see them, except for well, obviously, but there's infrared beams, and if you cut them by walking through them, it instantly sounds an alarm. And this guy doesn't have any useful info, but he has a POW, so he counts towards rank. Later on, you'll encounter ones where if you cross them, it damages you, and there's at least 2 of them where if you cross them at the wrong angle, they will instantly kill you. So, we gotta be careful with that. That's what the infrared goggles are for. And here, we find another prisoner. And he actually gives us some useful info in that Dr. Petrovich is being held prisoner in a cell on the rooftop. So we are back in Building 1, in a surprisingly short order. And, we are about to fight, believe it or not, another boss. This is the inspiration for Vulcan Raven right here, the Machine Gun Kid. His basic thing is he darts back and forth, occasionally does a combat roll, and he fires down these channels with his machine gun. Believe it or not, he's probably even easier than the shotgunner is, and he's another boss who you can damage with any weapon. It's worth noting that Kojima is a huge fan of American movies, and that's where, like, the inspiration for, like, 60 or 70% of the enemies in this game come from. Like, the Machine Gun Kid is openly based on Rambo. And, the Shotgunner, of course, is openly based on, I don't remember the name of the movie offhand, but I think it was one of the bad guys in Commando, actually. Much later on, you encounter the Hind Day. Hind Day was in so many freaking action movies of the 80s, it's ridiculous. There are tanks that you encounter, there's a whole bunch of, there's another boss, well, the Hind isn't in this game now that I think about it, because this is the NES version. But, there's a couple of other things that there's a couple of other enemies that we encounter that are openly based on movies. Like, there's a pair of cyborgs we encounter that are called Arnolds. Come on. Anyway, this is one of the rare scripted soldiers. These guys are specifically programmed so that if an alarm is sounded, or if they detect you, they immediately make a beeline to that switch and turn it on so that they can get the electrical power for the floor turned on. Very nasty if you're not careful. And there's one of them that's going to be driving me nuts later because of the memory flashing. And of course, Big Boss here doesn't really have any sarcastic or amusing responses here. He just tells us that to use the infrared goggles to spot the sensors. I just realized also that we passed the possible dialogue for if you're asking Diane about the Machine Gun Kid. She basically just tells him, you know, use remote control missiles. Here I got a phone call for a second. I apologize for that. I just realized I'm out of ammo. I need to stack up. See, one issue that's really common as the game progresses is, I remember most of the doors from experience, because again, I've played through this game so many times that I can do it in my sleep by now, but that room on the left has landmines, but it's also got 3 soldiers in it, and they will immediately spot you on entering, so this is, I think, yeah, this is one of those reasons I probably should have stocked up on ammo earlier. There's an even better reason a little bit later on, but for now, let's just say that, yeah, I'm probably going to need the body armor for this. Body armor is a lifesaver, especially during boss fights. Now, this next room is one that used to drive me insane as a child. This next one has... You remember the roller from earlier with the plastic explosive room? This one doesn't have anywhere to hide in it, and you only got one chance to have the right card, or that thing's gonna flatten you. And it takes card 3, but yeah, look at that. That's specifically intended to, you know, to be a douchey move right there. This ammo room's really good to restock it, because you can get plastic explosives and ammo here. Again, one of those fucking cameras. There we go. Now, every time you pick up an ammo box, it gives you a little bit of ammo for every gun you carry. And there's 4 of them in this game. There's the pistol, there's the submachine gun, there's the grenade launcher, and there's the rocket launcher. Rocket launcher we don't have yet, and it's probably the last gun we get, but it's also the most powerful. The pistol is, you see me use it pretty much all game. It's pretty much the game's best gun for the most part. The submachine gun you'll see me use a little bit later. It fires very quickly, but has kind of a fan spray. It's kind of interesting to note that the spray of the submachine gun is actually a lot tighter in Snake's Revenge, and the gun's generally better as a result. The grenade launcher uses the same box of ammo as every other gun you have, which is kind of ironic because the grenade launcher is like nothing like the other guns. You'll get a lot of mileage out of it in certain areas, but other than like it's still basically a niche weapon. The rocket launcher, once you get it, is like your heavy hitter, but we won't get that until much later on. Now here we have our first encounter with the wind barriers. You can't see him, but they'll blow Snake back if he walks into them. Also, again, note the transparent feet. Big boss here. I forgot to tell you, there are window barriers installed on the roof. That's actually a typo. It's supposed to be wind barriers. They're supposed to be like big fan-type things. You need a bomb blast suit to get it. And this is actually the location of a very serious error. Schneider tells you that the bomb blast suit is on the 2nd floor. You remember this from just a couple of minutes ago, but we weren't even in building 1 a minute ago. And the reason why is, in the original game, Metal Gear was only 2 buildings, the original Metal Gear. And that's actually a holdover from the MSX translation. The bomb blast suit was moved from the second floor of this building all the way over to building 3, and that never got updated. There I use the submachine gun for a bit. The submachine gun's really handy when you gotta handle a lot of people at once, and it is a silenced gun once you get the silencer for it, which makes it very, very useful. Ironically, this gun keeps coming back as like a reference. Like, if you ever played Peace Walker, this submachine gun is like the first one you get, complete with the silencer, if you can research it. For the most part, though, the handgun's the best gun, and the most ubiquitous, and the one you're gonna get the most mileage out of. That's true in Snake's Revenge as well, but at least the submachine gun's there. And you have a couple of other weapons too, like a shotgun. Here the guns are a little bit less ubiquitous, but Snake's a little bit more versatile. You see a lot more, you know... This was the first game of the series, after all. It's worth noting that it is possible to D-rank, as in lose a rank star, and that happens if you shoot a POW, which by all accounts you should avoid doing at all costs. Because if you do, at the wrong time, it functionally makes the game unbeatable. And the reason why is, much later on, there's certain NPC who you can call with the transceiver. Her name's Jennifer. She's a CIA operative who happens to be, who happens to have infiltrated Outer Heaven and is operating as a quartermaster. She can get you a lot of like rare and extremely powerful restricted equipment, but she won't even talk to you unless you're a high enough ranked Foxhound agent. And Snake, when he first gets here, is of course a rookie. So you gotta keep going and try to build up your rank if you want any hope of talking to her. And if you D-rank, she won't talk to you. So you will never be able to get those items. And this is the area I was talking about with the flash memory being a pain in the dick. This is also where we start to encounter the jetpack soldiers. In the MSX version, these guys flew. In the NES version, they don't. They simply are more aggressive, more intelligent, and more patient soldiers. Unfortunately, I was an idiot and I forgot to bring missiles, so this is going to hurt. A lot. Fortunately, rations, when you consume them, restore your entire health. It's worth noting that in a lot of areas later on, when your rank is high enough and you got a really big health bar, it's possible to tank certain hazards that otherwise would damage you. Like, there's one area where you are literally required to ford an electric floor. That's true in all versions of the game, too. But there's another one later on where you're, where normally you're not supposed to be able to go into an area until much, much later in the game. But if you're smart, you can get away with, you can actually get away with going there using by taking enough rations with you. On retrospect, I realized there are two ways I could have killed that one enemy right there, and I could have avoided the alarm. One, I could have just used the grenade launcher from the right spot, like maybe a half an inch below that, so that the second he arrived at the switch, he would have blown up. Alternately, I could have come in using the cardboard box and just shot left, and that would have killed him because he wouldn't have seen me. So, with no other real option, I decided, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to try to go for the door before I die. And this was me in a mad panic trying to hope that I could find the right key card, and thank the gods I did. And here we get another useful item, the mine detector. The mine detector is very simple. All it does is it makes all on-screen mines visible. And Big Boss tells you as such. Nothing, nothing clever or ridiculous about that statement. Big Boss has been a surprisingly dry source of humor since the joke about the sailor suits. But yeah, these guards used to fly if they were in alert mode, which made them a complete pain in the dick. Now they don't fly, but they're smarter, they're a bit more aggressive, and they're better shots than the guards you saw downstairs. And here we see one of the first major changes to the game. Originally on the roof, that center part of the wall between the two rooms wasn't there, and there was just one enemy here. It was a Hideo attack helicopter. The reason why they had to change this is that the NES couldn't handle the big sprites yet. Much later on, it was more than possible using compositions to try to put very big sprites, and they started doing this very effectively. But early on, that was just an impossibility. They couldn't do it. So what they did was they replaced the Hind for that one with a pair of gunners with the same vulnerability and about half the health of the Hind apiece. And we get to Dr. Petrovich's cell, and it's empty. He's not there. Are we too late? Which, by the way, now that I think about it, is a common Snake quote. He said that in quite a few games now. So what do we do now? Well, let's check the other cell. Maybe we can get a clue. And there's another prisoner here. And he tells us that was a close call, which they all say. But he does tell us that Dr. Petrovich has been moved to building number 2, and that it's about 10 kilometers north of building number 1. Obviously, this means we're about to leave building number 1 behind. But before we do, we're gonna take a brief couple of detours and restock some very vital supplies. These bridges are instant death, by the way. If you fall off of them, you will crash through a skylight and you will land in the tank hangar on the first floor. They don't show the skylight crash, but it instantly kills you, so don't fall off. It's actually easier to stay on it in the NES version because the motion is smoother, and it's easier to steer Snake around. Ironically, you don't need the bomb blast suit to get thrown back into the little cubby hole by the wind barrier, which I always thought was kind of nifty. We're back on this floor, which means it's
time to start restocking. While we're here, we're going to check out a couple of Big Boss's responses to some of the other pieces of equipment. Because some of them are really funny and some of them are just stupid. This was the room the cardboard box was in, if you recall. Well, let's see what he has to say about this one. Big box from here. Cardboard? What's going on? Are you planning to move or something? I don't know. That's actually unchanged from the MSX version. Big Boss does not have the sort of godless love for cardboard boxes that Solid Snake has, apparently. Cardboard boxes! His comment on the silencer is pretty matter of fact. He tells you exactly about what I did. Only he's a lot less wordy about it. What's interesting for most of the weapons that you pick up, if you ask him about, he'll tell you that you have to know how to use them, but he won't tell you how to use them. Is that an M79 grenade launcher? No, it's not. It's a grenade launcher which just so happens to look like an MP5 SD. Okay, seriously, this was actually something that was changed in the substance version of Metal Gear was included with the substance version of MGS3, and there they finally fixed the sprite, and it's an M79, which is what it was supposed to be, which kind of made sense considering that was what the grenade launcher at the time, the most common one, was. It's still kind of silly though, because like I get some of the weapons that Snake picks up in this. I really do. I mean, the M92 is like the most common 9mm pistol ever made. That makes sense. I get the grenade launcher. The M79 was hugely common even back then. Even in like Russia, they used to have knockoffs of it all the time. But I cannot, for the life of me, understand why the Ingram Mac 11 is the main SMG in this game. Because it was never terribly common. I know it was, like, really... You know what, now that I think about it, I know exactly the reason for, like, all of these weapon choices. And it wasn't that they were what was used at the time. All of them were obviously used at that time. Because the Mac 11 was mostly used by police departments. But I know the real reason now, because this was, I'll tell you, but I'll get back to that in a second. This bit of information is why I knew they were the remote control missile. It's because Big Boss eventually told me, because I found out by accident that you could call in the room and he would respond. And yeah, I gotta thank Mercenary Cover 1 for reminding me of that. But anyway, as I was saying, the commonality with all of these guns is they were all really popular during the 80s in movies and TV shows. Like, the Mac 11 was, like, the go-to SMG for most 80s movies. And Kojima is an avowed fan of Western action movies. Like, he knows it and he openly acknowledges it. And, I believe his profile in Peace Walker or something along the lines of 70% of my work is based on watching movies. So, you know what, at least he admits it. And here we will get Big Boss' comment on plastic explosive. You can use it anywhere you like. Oh, really? Oh, really? So if I use this to blow up a bus full of school children, that's fine? I'm reading too deeply into this. This is a game from a simpler time, back during the 80s. He does comment on the rations, though, and he does tell you that they're usually best off saved for later. They're emergency food supplies, so don't eat them now, save them. He's right, you really should stock the damn things up. Also, wait a minute, did that ration come back after I used the transceiver? I gotta remember that for future reference. I gotta see if I just uncovered an obscure exploit. I'm gonna make that note to self. But yeah, as you rank up, not only does your life gauge get bigger, but you hold more items and you hold more ammo. And this is especially notable with not only the gun, ammo and like the equipment ammo, but also for how many rations you can carry, and that dramatically makes it easier to survive. The longer, it's kind of interesting, the longer that you play Metal Gear, the easier the game becomes, at least in terms of what is demanded of you. You can fight it out with enemies and you'll survive because you have better equipment, and you have access to things like body armor, and you have access to an arsenal of healing items if it comes to that. But the game still manages to keep relatively challenging. Partly because it likes throwing instant death traps at you later, but we'll get to that eventually. And once again, this bit has been referred to more times than anyone would care to count. I think my least favorite one was the one in Metal Gear Solid 2, where you're trying to steer the missile into the thing with Raiden, and you have the president who seems to have a magnetic attraction to the fucking Nikita missile. And then the president grabs his crotch for his troubles. Fucking asshole. That's why no one voted for the guy. No wonder you lost the election as solid as Snake. Fucking asshole. Anyway, so now we're gonna go head over and we're gonna see if we can hear what he has to say about the submachine gun. Fucking camera. Fucking flash memory. See, that's really frustrating. If you have ones happen like that rapid fire, because you may as well still have the transmitter in your inventory if that's the case. You need to know how to use it. Over. And how do I use it, Mr. Boss Man? It's worth noting that depending on who you ask, Big Boss's name is either revealed or not. It was actually revealed in both the NES and MSX manuals as being Jackson South. I don't know if that's actually true, but I'm gonna say flat out, that is a badass name. I don't think we'll ever get any confirmation on what his actual name is, but because Kojima likes being mysterious like that. But I'll give credit where credit's due. If that is his name, that's a fucking badass name. Landmine, you need to know how to use it. Again, he doesn't tell you how to use them, but he tells you need to know how. I just realized that's about as helpful as asking Hyperion to do music for you. Okay, that was a low blow. I'm sorry. And that's also an in-joke, which nobody outside of my channel would get. The general gist is a friend of mine tried to contract another friend of mine for music work repeatedly, and he's very good at it. But hype tends to work only when he feels like it. So he'll put out like a song that's halfway decent, and then he'll just kind of wander off project, which is where the origin of that joke came from. See, this is like the only time, as far as weapons go, that he actually gives you good advice. You know, don't waste bullets, actively look for ammunition for it, etc. Here I'm going to take advantage of the glitch that I showed you. If you go into your inventory menu after opening a pit, before it opens all the way, you can close the pit. But you gotta be careful, because what was there of the pit will still be there, and will still kill you if you walk into it. But you can use this to get around areas that you otherwise couldn't get to. It's usable. It's very abusable in some areas later on where the pits are like constantly together, or in a position where it's specifically designed to catch you and kill you. Worth noting, by the way, that those tanks are based on M60s, M60 patents. Only one of them we fight, and it's actually one of the harder boss fights. Actually, I remember that fight causing me no end of trouble when I was a child. Mostly because the game, I had a copy of the OSG, which I eventually got, and it told me that I needed 20 mines to take out the tank. And there's no way to get 4 stars before you fight the tank. So I was constantly like, how the hell am I going to get 20 mines? And eventually I figured, you know what, screw it, I'm going to try it. And then when I had the 15, and 12 mines, it died. So there you go. We're right outside building 3 now. We can't even enter this until later. And if you notice, if we try to answer the transceiver, we don't get any call here. This is because we're not scripted to be able to even receive that call until later.
Anyway, this is where we're going to wrap up for now. Not because I want to, but because this movie's already run for over a half an hour, and because we have a rapid fire series of boss fights in the next vid. So we're gonna need some proper lead in, and I'm probably gonna need some tequila. Alrighty, I'll cut this off here, and we will resume this in the next episode.